Whenever my clients learn about a Keren Kaspit for the first time, they inevitably tell me, I wish I knew about this years ago. Why didn't someone teach me about this when I got off the plane? A Keren Kaspit is a great vehicle for short-term savings. It allows you to put money aside and earn a return on it. You can take any amount out whenever you like. You can add any amount whenever you like. You can automate putting money in and taking money out. You don't have to worry about speaking to the bank and negotiating. You don't have to worry about a savings account coming to an end after a year or two. You don't have to worry about not being able to access the money and negotiating liquidity points that I can access it every month or every quarter. All of that you can just forget about. A Keren Kaspit is fully liquid and fully available. So let's try to understand what it is. When you buy one, where is your money actually going? Then we'll take a look at the advantages of a Keren Kaspit, and then I'll help walk you through how you can choose which one or which ones you actually want to use. And then in the next video, you'll be able to see a demo of how to do it in your bank account. It's really just a few clicks and very, very straightforward. So what is a Keren Kaspit? At the end of the day, a lot of your money is going towards very short-term government bonds. We're lending the money to the government for a very short period of time. The fund is getting it back and is doing that again. That is one of the lowest risk things that we can do. Some people would argue that a Keren Kaspit might be less risky than even a savings account in the bank, but it's relatively similar, and it depends on which type of Keren Kaspit you buy. So there are two main types. Let's have a look at the one here on the right-hand side. There is a Keren Kaspit lelo concerni. In other words, it doesn't have any corporate bonds. It really just has government bonds. And that is the safest type. So you can see here that in this example, the Nadav one, 85% is put into makam, which is the very short-term government bonds, and about 15% within the fund managers put it into bank savings accounts, into Pictonot at rates that they negotiate because they've got billions of shekels to be able to negotiate great rates. So that's one example. There aren't as many of these that are available, many different types of these that are available, but there are some. The more classic example is a Keren Kaspit that is allowed to invest also in company bonds, but they are very high grade bonds. In other words, the risk is low on them, and also very short term, same as the government bonds. So you can see that nowadays, this is a typical example, and we're recording this beginning of 2025. Keren Kaspits do change a bit over time, especially as interest rates change. And this is one particular video that we update at least once a year. But yeah, in a more typical one, you can see about a third of the money goes to the short-term government bonds. About a third of the money at the moment in many of the funds is going towards bank savings accounts. And about a third of the money is being loaned out to very high-grade companies, and the companies are paying it back after just a few months to the fund, and then that goes again. Obviously, all of this is in a very diversified way. And so Keren Kaspit is one of the lowest risk places that you can put money. And if you want to be even more conservative, you can particularly look for a Keren Kaspit that is lelo concerni. And we'll see an example of that when we look at our list at the end. So, what makes a Keren Kaspit unique? It pays very high interest. Well, not very high for long term, but very high for short term. Roughly the Bank of Israel interest rate. At the moment, as of the recording of this, that's about 4.5%, and a Keren Kaspit is paying around about 4.2 to 4.5%. It's liquid. You can take the money out whenever you want. You just put in the order, and the next business day, the money is back in your account. There are no minimums. You can put in some funds as little as 1 shekel, and then put in and out, sell, buy as little as 1 shekel worth. Some of them, the unit price is 10 shekels. Some of them you have to buy a few units, but essentially no minimums. Low risk because of all of the things we spoke about in the previous slide. The tax is a little bit better on a Keren Kaspit compared to a bank savings account, at least at the moment. So on a bank savings account, a Picadon or a Pakam, you would pay 15% tax on the interest that you earn. With a Keren Kaspit, you pay 25% tax only on the real gains, only on the difference between the inflation and the gain that you get. So if inflation is 3% and the interest rate on the Keren Kaspit is 4%, then you're paying a quarter of the difference. You're paying essentially 0.25%, which is about 1/16 or about 6% of the overall return, and that obviously is less than 15% of the overall return. Number 6, transparent, easy, you know what's going on, you don't have to negotiate with the bank, and you just click a few buttons and you have access. The banks are not allowed to charge any bank fees on a Keren Kaspit, not on buying, not on selling, not on holding. And that's why we buy them through the bank. It's more convenient, and there are no fees to pay to the bank. There's just if you have a look over here, number 9, there's a very low management fee of about 0.1% paid to the manager of the fund, the management company of the fund. And also tax deferral. If you've gone through the long-term course already, you'll see that over there we used accumulating funds, so that if you just want to build up the value in the fund, you don't have to pay tax until you eventually sell. So all of the ones that we're going to look at are accumulating funds, and the returns just build up in the fund until you actually want to access the money. So lots and lots of advantages, especially when compared to a bank savings account. The only real situation where you might want to still use a bank savings account is if you need a fixed interest rate. Let's say you want to put aside money for 2 years, and if you do it in the Keren Kaspit, the interest rate's variable. It can change over time as Bank of Israel changes their rate. If you instead want to lock in a higher rate, then you do that in a different way, probably using a savings account. So now we know what a Keren Kaspit is, we know the advantages. Let's say you want to use one. This is what you do. You go to this website, funder.co.il/Kaspit, and you click at the top on the words Domain Nihul in order to sort all of the funds that are available by their fees. Now, all of the major investment houses issue Keren Kaspits, and you can use any of them through any bank. Migdal and IBI and Harel and more, they all have Keren Kaspits that you can use. Overall, they're very similar one to the other. They do very similar things, especially if we're looking at the shekel Keren Kaspits. You can actually buy dollar Keren Kaspits, but we're not dealing with that at the moment. And so the main factor we want to look at is the fee. So we want to try to buy ones that have lowest fee. You can also have a look at, their recent returns and those kind of things, but it's not necessarily predictive. Just because one fund got 0.34 this month and another one did 0.38 this month, that doesn't mean that next month the higher one is going to be higher. So usually not really worth paying too much attention to those small differences, but the fees at least are predictable. So after we have a look at this list, this first one, you see it says mechaleket, that it distributes the returns. In other words, it doesn't keep them in the fund. So that's not ideal. To see all of the interest come back to our bank account and to pay tax on that regularly every month. We'd rather use an accumulating fund. So all the other ones are perfectly fine. All of these ones, at least, these next 7 in the list. There's one of them that is lelo concerni, that doesn't have the corporate bond. So if you're looking for that, here it is. There's only one that has very low fees, although there are more that have just slightly higher fees. I've particularly chosen those that are at or under 0.12% in terms of the fee. And so then I take those 7 and I just summarize them for you in a table. This isn't an investment recommendation. I've just taken the 7 cheapest ones and put them here as examples. But obviously you can use any, and listed the fee and listed the ticker. This 7-digit ticker you're going to use in the next video when you open up your bank portal and go ahead and try to buy one of these funds. I've highlighted in green the one that doesn't have any corporate bonds, and that's really all there is to it. You choose the fund that you want to use, you head over to your bank, make sure you have access to the trading platform, and I'll talk about that a bit also in the next video, and you go ahead and you can buy. Now, when you get to financial planning, we'll talk about how you might want to use more than one Keren Kaspit. Maybe you'll want one for your emergency fund, one for your travel fund, and one for your property fund, for example. So in order to do that, you would choose 3 of these. And you'd make a note for yourself. You can't give them a name in the bank, but you'll make a note for yourself. You'll say, for example, IBI is my emergency fund, Migdal is my travel fund, and the Dolphin one is my property fund. And whenever I want to add or take out money from each of those funds, I'll buy or sell from each one, and I'll just have those three funds listed in my account, and I'll be able to see how much money I have set aside for each of those separate things. That's all there is to it, and good luck. Enjoy using Keren Kaspit.